It's that time again for another budget edition, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Setup Wars, episode 265. As always, the budget edition of Setup Wars is to help inspire people out there who want to build a cool setup but are on a very tight budget. All the setups that we're going to be showing off today will cost around $2,000, give or take. So if you guys want to participate, make sure to watch the video link down below. But with that said, sit back and relax, because you know what time it is. Imagine using only one software to control all of your RGB products from your setup. Well, with today's sponsor, Signal RGB, you can do just that. I've been using these guys for months now, and I just love how I was able to replace 6 different programs with just one, making my life so much easier. With Signal RGB, I'm able to completely customize the lighting in my setup, from the peripherals all the way to the PC parts. Over in the Devices tab, you can see a full list of compatible products that work with Signal RGB, and under the Layouts tab, you can position all of your gear anywhere on the grid to get that perfect flow of lighting in your setup. You can find a ton of awesome free lighting effects in the libraries that will take your setup to the next level. If you find an effect that you like but you don't like the colors, you can completely customize it. That's what's so awesome about Signal RGB. You can change pretty much anything from the size to the speed of the animation and of course the colors. So you're guaranteed to find something that fits beautifully with your setup's color scheme. There's even an entire section dedicated to game integrations. You can have the lighting in your setup react to specific actions in games. For example, in Warzone, I can have the entire keyboard flash red when I get knocked down. What's mind-blowing is that this software is free. They are community-driven with support for over 200 plus of the most popular PC gaming peripherals and PC parts like Razer, Corsair, and more. So definitely check them out, you guys. Use my link below and see if your products or devices are supported with Signal RGB. And if they're not, don't worry, because you can request it on their website. They're always adding support for more devices. Kicking off the episode, we have a very clean and cozy budget setup from Elijah, coming all the way from the Philippines. What is going on, my guy? He is currently unemployed due to COVID, and what better way to pass the time than to build a setup for gaming and entertainment. I'm absolutely loving the warm tones in this setup. You know, the way he added a black brick wallpaper to contrast the lighter brick wallpaper on the sides. It helps draw your attention to the center where the setup is. Brilliant. Adding wallpapers have always been a very easy and non-permanent way to decorate your room and add a bit of spice to your setup. Since they don't have an IKEA in the Philippines, Elijah found a good carpenter to replicate the Alex drawers and a countertop made out of solid wood. And honestly, I think he did a pretty good job because I didn't even notice it wasn't from IKEA until I read the notes. We got dual monitors hooked up against the desk, a single 24-inch curved display with a 144Hz refresh rate as the main, and a secondary 22-inch at vertical mode for Discord and multitasking. For peripherals, he's rocking a SteelSeries Rival 3 mouse and a Rack Lam Ang Pro keyboard with Kale Box white switches. I love how he carried over some of the warm tones from the wallpapers over here as well with those vinyl keycaps and the wooden wrist rest. What's interesting is that he went with a custom coiled cable, but instead of passing the cable across the desk, he kind of ran it back through the keyboard and underneath the mouse pad. I love how he's able to kind of get the best of both worlds here, using a nice coiled cable to complement the keyboard while also hiding the wire. I noticed you have a Topo Design mousepad from Alpha, which looks pretty cool. That design is really popular, so much that I made my very own Topo design, but in white and black. For anyone interested in checking them out, of course, I'll leave a link below. For audio, he's using the Arctis 5s in black for gaming, but switches over to the Edifier speakers for music and watching videos. You know, there's a nice balance of colors here, from the gray pegboard against the brown wallpaper to the brown from the speakers and the headphone hangers, and there's even a bit of greenery to complete the look. I think Elijah did a phenomenal job on staying consistent to this really cozy rustic theme of the entire setup. When it comes to cable management, I think he did a pretty decent job sticking everything underneath the desk, but it does look like a nightmare to take apart if he ever needs to add or remove something from the setup. Personally, I would have just stuck with using a few cable trays to make your life a lot easier in the long run. And finally, the PC powering it all is a nice little budget build featuring the Ryzen 5 3600X and the RX 580 with some cable extensions. I think Elijah did a great job balancing the budget of the entire setup while also making sure the PC looks good and is able to take advantage of the refresh rate of the main monitor. Shifting gears a bit, we have an entirely different type of budget setup. You know, in addition to monetary limitations, Everett was also limited in space. There was a small indentation against the wall in the corner of his bedroom, which he took advantage of and built a floating desk. Really good use of space. The setup was built for gaming and schoolwork with a single 27-inch monitor from Acer and the Logitech G413 keyboard paired with the G502 mouse. I also love how he mounted a boom arm against a shelf underneath the desk because the actual desk itself was too thick for the clamp. That is definitely big brain, I would say. But what really tops up the setup submission are the headphones. Not because he used a fake plant as the headphone hanger, but because he doesn't know the name of the model due to the fact that he stole them from school. And having the audacity to mention it in his notes, like you could have just lied about the headphones, you know. Do your parents know that they have a thief living in their home? Everett's parents, if you're watching this video, your son's a thief. And I think discipline is in order. Maybe you guys can take away his Fortnite or Minecraft account for a week. That'll show him. This was definitely one of the more entertaining budget setups I've seen recently, I guess. Thank you, Everett, for sharing this with us, and I'm sorry to throw you under the bus. I guess since we're on the topic of floating desks, we can take a look at this setup by Gabriel from Israel. Talk about compact. This dude built a floating setup right in the middle of his wall. The purpose is for gaming, graphic design, and video editing. It looks like he covered a table with some cloth material to give it a unique look while adding a layer of protection as well. I think this is the first time I've seen a monitorizer built in a floating desk, along with a floating shelf for the PC. Gabriel was determined to keep everything off the floor. So the main desk is being held up against the wall by two V brackets, while the smaller shelf on the left side is being held up by smaller V brackets. But the tables don't sit flush against the wall. Gabriel purposely kept a small amount of space in between so that he can route the cables between the desk without having to drill any holes in it. He's also able to clamp the boom arm to the desk itself, allowing him to hide it behind the monitor. Nicely done. I think the monitor riser here makes the most sense ergonomically, as he's able to comfortably keep his 32-inch monitor at eye level and have his peripherals lower for a comfortable sitting position. The risers also double as stands for both of his speakers, which is nice, but he does own a headset for gaming. The only things I don't understand are the two mouse pads and the position of the PC. You know, it does have a clear side panel, so why not put the shelf on the right side so that you can appreciate the beauty inside? I mean, it's a great looking system too. We got a 10900 in here with a Gigabyte RTX 3070 Master. I think it's safe to say that most of the budget went into the PC and the monitor. I noticed there were some cable raceways on the wall leading to an outlet, so if I had to guess, I'd say the cables were too short to put the PC on the right side. But if that's the case, you know, I would have just went with longer cables, to be honest. But other than that minor nitpick, I think this is a pretty sweet floating setup you built here. Thank you, Gabriel, for sharing this with us. You know, we've been looking at floating desk setups a lot lately, so why not throw another one at you guys? This seems to be the new craze lately after all. Musa from Pakistan took an entirely different approach to the setup, and the way he secured the desk against the wall is honestly quite genius if you ask me. He made a YouTube video on how he put it together if you guys want to check it out, but he basically hooked up an iron frame with tubes against the wall and he drilled holes into two separate pieces of wood and slid them inside the frame. A very similar design to a wall shelf. Then he attached two more cables against the wall for some extra support, and I think it came out amazing. He did keep a little bit of space behind the desk to route the cables from the 24-inch monitor and both of the speakers. Since he doesn't use the setup for gaming, he went with a wireless keyboard and mouse from HP to stay under his budget. Another cool mod I really like from Musa's setup is the self-made nightstand. So check this out. He basically used a tripod to hold up a small piece of wood that acts as a shelf for his storage container. I've definitely never seen this before. But the coolest mod from the setup, and my personal favorite, has to be the wall-mounted PC. The parts were stripped out of a pre-built Dell PC and installed against a thin piece of black acrylic. He drilled holes to pass through the cables and he hooked up the entire thing against the wall with some spacers. I just love how he was able to take a boring pre-built PC and build something cool out of it. This setup was just full of surprises and a great example of what you can accomplish on a tight budget and a bit of creativity. Thank you, Musa, for sharing this with us. Wrapping up the episode is a setup more on the simpler side from Matt, coming all the way from Hungary. He built this for gaming and work, and it consists of a single 27-inch 144Hz monitor that he keeps on a riser. Moving on to peripherals, we got the HyperX Alloy Elite paired with the Pulsefire Surge mouse. And then for audio, he does own a Sony soundbar that he is planning to mount underneath the desk. But in the meantime, he is using a JBL speaker for watching content and the HyperX Cloud Alphas for gaming. That's pretty much it for the setup. There's a bit of decor on the left side so it doesn't look too empty, and then we have a custom PC on the right side. It's a nicely balanced build with enough power to push the 144Hz 1440p monitor. We got the Ryzen 5 5600X with an RX 5700 XT Nitro Plus. I think one of the most important things to consider when building a setup on a budget is how much do you want to spend on the performance versus the aesthetics. In Matt's case, he didn't go for anything over the top or flashy, and instead used the budget on all the essentials like the monitor, peripherals, and a solid PC. Personally, I think this is the best upgrade path for anyone wanting to build a setup from scratch, because now that you got the most important components out of the way, you can start saving up for other non-essential things like RGB stuff or decoration for the setup to spice it up and make it your own. Really great work on this budget setup, and thank you, Matt, for entering. As a reminder, you guys can always pick up a cheap Windows CD key for less than $15. Just click on my link below and use the code TS20 for an extra 20% off. Once you get your CD key, just visit the activation settings in Windows and change your product key. It's that simple. And that will do it for today's video. As always, make sure you guys comment below. Let me know which of these setups was your absolute favorite and why. If you guys are enjoying a new season of Setup Wars, as always, make sure to toss a simple like before you head out, as it does help out the channel and it will feed the algorithm gods. If you guys are new here, consider subscribing because I do host Setup Wars every single Monday. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon in the next one.